All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode 354 here of Stu and the Nun. And you've got Stu and the Rob, or Rob and the Stu on tonight. And hoping for Nun here in a little bit. He is in transit and maybe trying to jump on here in a little bit. So we will definitely welcome him. Move my mic, can't even see my mouth move. Welcome him once he gets here. Anyways, we were working on a great guest tonight, weren't we, Rob? But doesn't look it's going to pan out.
Right. Hopefully for another day.
Yeah, hopefully for another day. And once we get that locked in, it's one we definitely want to promote and get the word out about, because it's going to be a crazy awesome show once we get him on. So yeah, so it's just on us on tonight, maybe Toby here in a little bit, and we're gonna, well, like every week on this show, there is no shortage of things to talk about. And we don't even have to plan days ahead. We can just wait till Thursday, and there are no shortage of things to talk about. So thank you everyone for joining. Rob, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. And yourself?
Good.
I'm really enjoying this warmer weather is what I'm enjoying.
Yeah, no crazy rain, nothing like that. It's just decent weather.
No, it does kick up the allergies for me. I moved out of Texas because of the allergies, and that wind that comes in brings some of that Texas allergies up my way, and so you can kind of hear it in my voice and such. But I'm doing all right.
Hey, is that why you moved? I thought you just wanted to get to Arkansas. I did not realize.
I'm highly allergic to cedar, to that juniper that's down there, to the point that I was having to get almost 2 shots a year. Which anyone who's ever gotten a steroid shot knows that stuff's not good for your liver, kidneys, etc. And
Right.
I would get to the point that my eyes would swell shut. I would end up in emergency rooms where I couldn't see, someone would have to drive me. And I mean, it was horrible. And I put up with it for 19 years, and I just had enough. So
Yeah, there's an area, a suburb, I guess you could call it, outside of Austin called Cedar Park, and it's called that for a reason.
yes.
But yeah, it is pretty bad. I know when obviously I'm down there quite a bit. My current company, my last company, are headquartered out of there. So I remember when it was like cedar season, the pollen and stuff. Everyone just talked about it. It just covers all the cars, and it just makes everyone miserable. If I wasn't down there talking to them on a call, I could tell, like, oh, is it that time of year already? Yeah, it's so that makes sense. Makes good sense. But yeah, it's good weather here in the northern studio of Western New York, in the mid-high 40s today, I think 50, 52 maybe, and it's nothing but sunshine. So that makes it, the temperature can be whatever it is, but when you throw that big heat tab on you, makes it a lot nicer. It can be at 30s or 40s, but with that sun on you, it is it's very tolerable, especially if there's no wind. If there's no wind, you're good to go. So good. And we'll get the weather update from the very southern studio of Mexico if Toby joins. So Yeah, a lot of things going on. Anything hot in that you've been tracking or following that you think you want my opinion on, or you want to talk about, or um,
Well, I mean, the biggest thing was we because of where I work, it's always government shutdown, right? And it looks as if that is going to be avoided. They are extending that for a year. I wish they would do a final. Yeah, I'm sick of this management by y- chaos. Right, the government is charged with a role, and that is to set the budgets properly and fund the government. And I wish they would just simply come together and do their job and stop acting like petulant children. So,
well, it's amazing, right? Because that's one of the few things that are called for in the Constitution, right? The Constitution does not lay out every single responsibility or thing that the government does today, but it does cost talk about setting a budget, and it's something they can barely do ever. I mean, to the point that they do agree on a budget, and I don't remember. I mean, you probably know or can check when the last time was they actually passed a budget. I think it was during Trump's first term. I'm reading a story. Um, I think that was it, but pretty much continuing resolution or CR, as we say, the link in the space, it kind of becomes the norm. Like everyone just expects, oh, we're going to CR, it's going to happen, it's going to, because they cannot pass a budget, so they keep current spending levels, or you're allowed to spend up to about 3/4 of what you had last year, and everyone in the government, every agency, every program is all running at just kind of limping along, hoping they know what they can plan for. They can't do acquisition, they can't plan software upgrades, they can't do a lot of stuff because they don't know what they're going to get.
well, the first thing that's supposed to happen is the president is supposed to draw up his budget and
Yep.
and give that to Congress, and then Congress takes that and decides how they're going to appropriate the funds for that. Um, but as we saw with almost every previous president, they never turn their budget in time. We continue to do these continuing resolutions. It's much like managing through executive order. You
Right.
don't manage any kind of company that way. You manage through standard processes and procedures. You
Right.
know you and we can't continue to run this way. It's how we get to the fraud, waste, and abuse, because it's everybody jumping through hoops. We throw these large budgets at the without line items being documented on there, and institutions get to just spend it the way they want.
Well, they really force people's back against the wall. Everyone is desperate to get certain things funded or whatever, and then depending on who's in charge or their level of influence, they will add in writers and add-ons and all that stuff. They have nothing to do with it. Whether it's a defense budget only, whether it's the national budget, just to get something in there. And at that point, the other elected reps are so desperate, and hearing so much noise from their constituents, are just desperate to get it through, they pass it, and that's how you get $50 million to study gay shrimp in freaking Bogota or something, right? And all those though, or building of some study of homosexual mice in Omaha, Nebraska, or something. So that's it. But I mean, this is a one of the few, and I say few because Congress and the government do a lot of things. If you look at the total things they do, the services they provide, all that kind of stuff, there's only a few that are outlined in the Constitution. This is one of them, and they cannot do that basic thing. It's almost like, as a parent, you have a lot of responsibility, right? For raise your kids and make sure they're fed and make sure that they get their homework done and that they are brought up in the right lifestyle, and maybe get them to sports and blah 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 blah. Well, there's a basic thing as a parent, which is provide safety and nutrition and comfort and a place to sleep. There's a couple of basic things you have to do as a parent. You don't have to let your kids be in sports. You don't have to drive them there. You don't have to let them. There's a lot of stuff you don't have to do, but there's a few basic things you have to do, or otherwise you could be in trouble. This is like one of those things. Congress has to pass this budget, and it would be like what they do with CR, if I use the parent analogy, is like every night you have no plan for food until right before dinner. And then you're like, all right, we'll go get the Big Mac we'll go get the McDonald's family package that gives us a few burgers, some nuggets, and that stuff. That'll get you through till like Saturday. Like we'll just eat McDonald's till. Saturday we're going to figure it out. Hopefully there's someplace with a coupon. We'll go to Domino's, and we can get a large pizza. Well, that'll get us 2 more days of eating. I mean, that's kind of what the Congress is doing to our country.
Well, with a
Uh,
little bit of extra too, and depending on which parent goes to get the food, right? The other one may hit the ATM on the way and pull out some extra money and give it to their side chick or whatever, because that's what's happening, right? That's what's happening
right.
through things like USAID. That's what's happening through these budgets that they pass, that they almost poison pill them on purpose, and then they get to hide behind it or utilize that as a tool against the other party. And they're both doing it. Both Republicans and Democrats are doing it. And I want to have single line item bills so that nobody gets to hide. So you put up a bill to say we're going to give Israel X amount of funds. I would love to see Talib and the squad vote no against it and see what their constituents say, and stop
Yeah.
giving these people things to hide behind.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, using the same analogy, and you kind of went on it. As the dad drives to go get the pizza, he stops at the package store and picks up a case. Picks up a case of beer, and oh, by the way, swing by Best Buy and pick up a new iPad, and then comes back and is like, "What? I got the pizza." It's like, yeah, what's all this other stuff?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so it looks like it's averted. It pretty much was all the House, surprisingly to a lot of people, passed the budget. They voted on and got it past the House the other day. It came to the Senate. Chuck Schumer from the state of New York, who's the senior guy in the Senate for the Democrats, had threatened to, because it takes 60 votes to pass. Obviously, the Senate is so tight that they don't, the Republicans don't have 60. They were dependent on some Democrats. And Schumer was acting like Tommy Toughnuts up until probably an hour or two ago, and then said that they would pass it. But I think he got the word that, it does not look good. The American people have said in the voting in November what they think, and the Congress is now at its lowest approval rating, 21%, I think, and the American people's favoritism of Congress. And it's like, you can't spin this in any way to blame it on the other party. Like, this is, the government shuts down, it rests solely on the Democratic Party. And right now the Democrats can't take any more hits. They are
They
so
are. I don't completely buy into this, that they're in full disarray, because the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's are still there.
right.
Now, are they a wounded duck? Yeah, but I think they're still flying, and they will recoup. That one of the things that is easy to do is to lull your enemy to sleep with the promise of peace, right? And I think the Democrats are lulling the Republicans to sleep with this thought that they can just relax, and then they go into midterms knowing Republicans don't vote very well in midterms, and then they can
Right.
just go into midterms and just steal both houses back again. And then if that happens, we know Trump is at a standstill. Nothing's going to happen. He will have a lame duck presidency, and all work that he wants to do will end. So
Well, or he'll turn back to be, nothing but executive orders, and then just face, liberal judges who are trying to run this country, and all that kind of stuff. This is why I believe, from what I've seen and some things I've heard, why he is moving at the blistering blitzkrieg pace he has since he came in. We talked about on the show a few weeks ago that, at least in my opinion, him not winning in 2020 was the best thing could have happened, because it gave him a chance to step back, reset. Like we say in combat, you get your butt kicked off the objective, right? Or you lose a battle, you go back, reset, reconstitute, rearm, reorganize, and get your game plan together and get ready to come back in full strength. So, I mean, it gave him a chance to do that. And that's why he's moving so fast, because there is a risk. Nothing is promised. Like, tomorrow's never promised for any of us, that he could, lose both houses to the Democrats. Somehow it could happen in essentially just a little over a year and a half. And then he would be, there's nothing else is going to get through. And they need to not only get a lot of these actions in place, do the cost cutting they're doing and everything, but they need to convert a lot of these executive orders into laws. So they cannot just
right,
be, a signature can erase them. They have to get through and become laws. So I think that's the goal, from what I understand, after the budgets are passed. The next, the big thing is, I think we're going to see a flurry of of bills get proposed in both houses, and have them start going through that are going to reinforce and enact some of these executive orders into full term laws that are much harder to undo and reverse.
Well, the
But
good thing is Trump has his, I think, minus one position, his entire cabinet set, right? Which is good for Republicans because I was a little worried because he kept going back to the till, to get people to fill his cabinet. Well, he's stealing people away from the House and the Senate, right? And with their majority being razor thin as it is, and we go
right.
into midterms, when you take people like McConnell, who's going to retire, he's not going to rerun. You've got a whole bunch of things that are in play that really make the midterms very, very, very important. So
Oh,
we'll,
absolutely.
we'll we'll see what
And
happens.
and he has taken a few folks, but he's also picked up some governors. He picked up like Kelly Loeffler, some people that no longer in Congress, so it doesn't impact either one. But yeah, they really can't take anymore. They've got to deal with what they got, and go with there. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I mean, this funding is going to take it through September 30th. So this CR is going to take it for 6 months till the end of the fiscal year for the government, and then we'll see where we sit come August September timeframe, which as well as I do, working around the government. That's a crazy time for the Fed, anyways, as the year winds down, to try to get a new budget passed and all that kind of stuff. But who knows between now and then how things are going to pan out. I mean, the reality is, who would have thought that Fetterman would become one of the most common sense, because that's what it's all about. Hashtag common sense. One of the most common sensed Democrats there is the guy that everyone was kind of writing off as mentally disabled.
Right.
He couldn't talk without iPad, this and that, whatever. How many, as Americans as they continue to run polls and Americans continue to succeed. I mean, I heard the gas prices yesterday, or average, is down for the lowest in 4 years, which what was 4 years ago. 303 a gallon. Egg prices have dropped 30%. Home prices, inflation was lower than expected yesterday. So, if this keeps going, which is, not much different than it was in 2016, 2017, and people start to become prosperous and doing well, regardless of what letter they normally vote on. That's what needs to happen to make sure that Republicans not only keep the majority, but increase that majority, and be sure they do something with it. Because the good thing about the Republican Party now, there's a big faction that is not just going to sit on their hands and just trust whatever the established Republicans say.
Why
Right?
am
They
I
will.
what one of my favorite people in Washington, and I don't like politicians. So let me start with that. I don't like any of them. But one of my favorite of the ones I don't like is a man by the name of Byron Donalds, and he's out of Florida, and he
Yep.
is going to be running for the governor of Florida. Losing him, because he's a huge voice for Trump and the Republicans. He's very outspoken. He's not afraid to go on any left wing media and give his opinion and face down even the most staunchest of liberals. Um, Moving him to a governor is great for the state of Florida. It's great for the country, but losing him in Washington, it hurts a little bit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, but DeSantis is coming the term limits, so he's got to
Yeah,
go somewhere. And Florida is they need a strong governor, right? Through the
yeah,
storms they get hit with and everything else, and where they are on the front lines of the immigration issue. I mean, they need a good, strong governor. I mean, I saw Byron Donalds, got to see him speak when I was in D.C. at the inauguration, and everything, and really, yeah, an impressive guy. But I'm sure they're gonna continue to put up very solid folks as a replacement. And Florida is gonna as of now, looks pretty darn solid red. That it's not a
yeah.
good. It was 4 years ago, or even 8 years ago.
But Byron won me over when he was asked a question about, or aren't you afraid of this? And he looked at that person. He said, "I'm 6'4", 275 pounds. I'm not afraid of anybody."
Yeah,
And I just had to laugh.
yeah,
So
yeah. So, yeah, another kind of a hot thing that's tied to some of this, right, is just the whole markets right now. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about the budget funding. I mean, the tariffs thing has kind of been crazy. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how that looks. It's trying not to look at this biased, but it seems like every time the president comes out with something, threatens tariffs, does whatever, he gets his way. It's funny, right? Leading up to the not to the election, even after the election, right? The left was always like, President Trump would say tariffs is a beautiful word, the most beautiful word I know, and blah blah blah. And then the left was all saying all he wants to do is he's taxing Americans via tariffs. They kept calling it a tax, that kind of stuff. And they're like, that's all he wants to do. That's not how you run a country, just by tariffs and stuff. Well, it at the end of the day, like everything in life, it comes down to the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
And if a country can't make those dollars off of us because we put a tariff on them, then it's going to change minds. It changed minds in Mexico and Canada. Originally, he was like, fix the security on the border or I'm tariffing you. And then just did again with both those countries. And even, the premier of Ontario, who threatened to put a tariff of 25% onto electricity being sold to the U.S., that was on Monday. By Tuesday, he had backed off because the secretary, I think the Treasury Secretary, called him and said, "You do that. This is what we're going to do. 50% on aluminum, this, that, whatever." So they can talk and be Tommy Toughnuts and Tammy Toughnuts as much as they want, but these threats of tariffs are making a difference already. And I think a lot of the American people probably didn't, unless they really study this and are around it, they hear about tariffs and stuff. People don't really know it. I mean, it's just not something they know. It's not something they've studied. It's they pay attention to if they're not in that industry or markets or whatever. And people are like, okay, what he's putting tariffs, whatever, blah blah blah. But when the president starts laying it out there that after April 1, it's just going to be reciprocal, like whatever they charge us, we charge them. I think a lot of the American people go, that seems fair.
Well, that's the thing is the messaging, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
always have to get the message across. And I think one of the things that they need to do better, and much like they did with the Doge website, is throw up a web page and say, these are all the different items, and this is what the percentage of tariff we are being charged for X country. Now, maybe some of that would hurt some of his negotiations because it'd be kind of a poke in the eye, but it
Right.
would be great for the American people to see when you go, oh, you're going to set tariffs on Canada for milk because they're charging us 270%, tariff when we send it that way.
Right.
People hear that tariff and they think, well, it's just as he's just being an ass and it's a one-way thing, and they don't realize just how high a tariffs we are paying to send our stuff out.
Right, which
Uh,
means our farmers, our manufacturers, our cattlemen and whatever it may be, they have that takes those markets out of they can't sell their stuff there, right? Because no
yeah,
one wants to pay that kind of thing. I heard an interesting one yesterday. I didn't know. Japan has a 100% tariff on any rice that we sell into Japan to make sure that they don't buy American rice. Now, we buy rice from them,
yeah,
but if anyone wants, if we ship rice and sell rice into Japan, they have a 100% tariff on it. Now, it's stuff like that. I think when American people start hearing it, like, what? Like, nah, we'll grow our own damn rice. Arkansas is the capital of rice in the United States. They make all the rice for Budweiser, everything like that. I mean, I'm sure farmers here would love to grow rice and sell it right in here. And, we don't need Japanese rice, make our own rice. And so when you start hearing, right now he's using tariffs as a motivator, at a tool, right? Everything in life is through a carrot and a stick. And he's using it to, like, say, look, match us or fix the border or stop the fentanyl, whatever it is, or we're just going to make things, it's going to be harder for you to sell things into our country.
right.
I think it was smart too, was he was upfront with the American people and said, look, it may be painful for a little bit. It may be, right.
Well,
It's
there's no doubt that we're more of a consumer market than we are a selling market, right? I mean, we don't produce the way we used to produce, right?
right.
We've shipped a lot of our manufacturing overseas. We've shipped a lot of it down to Mexico. We've done a lot of those things, but that doesn't mean that we can't start producing more of that stuff here. That doesn't mean that we can't sustain ourselves if we were to cut off, you know, rice from
Right.
Japan as an example, right? We don't have to get their rice. We have Texas, we have Arkansas that grows rice. We have plenty of places to do that. You know,
But part of
the
that
whole
that disparity between imports and exports, some of that is because of the tariffs, right?
yeah,
And a good example is because of these tariffs that he's putting on Mexico and other places. You have Honda and several other car manufacturers who are now building plants or moving car manufacturing into the United States, which has
yeah,
multiple win-win-win effects, right? Not only do they win because they don't have to pay for the tariffs, but really the U.S. wins because now you're employing Americans and you're getting
right,
jobs and you're building industry and all that kind of stuff. And that's really the whole point: is either let us have a fair shake to sell our goods, produce, agriculture, whatever it is, out to the world, or you know, make it here and employ Americans and boost the economy that way. It's going to work one way or another. And I think when you see these countries back down, talk to big smack, and then back down usually within 24 hours or whatever, it's because at the end of the day that almighty dollar wins. And I think most can agree Trudeau was on the edge of getting booted anyways out of Canada, but when Trump came out and talked about the tariffs, he changed the politics of that country. Canada knew they would not be able to make it if we put those kind of tariffs on them,
yeah.
and that just blew it up, and he lost the last bit of confidence anyone had in him to be the leader.
Well, whether you're talking tariffs or you're talking um, a lot of the deportations, those two topics in particular bring out the racism in the Democrat Party bigger than anything else. So Democrats immediately go, "Oh, well, we're not going to get any avocados if you raise the tariffs on Mexico." Do you think the only thing that we get from Mexico is avocados? Is that really what you think? And then when you talk, deportation, like, well, who's going to pick your produce? So what
Yeah.
you're saying is someone immigrants are only capable of picking produce. They bring nothing else to the economy. That's what you're saying. That's a pretty racist view of things. Both of those.
California makes a lot. They are the avocado capital of the United States. Is in California, right down near uh, Monterey Bay, that area, like Central California. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and it may hurt a little bit, and prices may go up. Our eggs are going down because I guess we're quit killing all the chickens. But but you're right. Those kind of things, like who's gonna do those jobs Americans don't want to do. I don't know. Maybe people can do stuff themselves, or there's an American out there somewhere that'll do it. Maybe
Yeah.
pay better, whatever. It's you can't. How do I say this? You can't sit there and be such a staunch critic and just run this country through the mud hole because uh, years ago, generations ago, we were involved in slavery as part of this country's history, but then also kind of want a pseudo slavery today, because that's what you're saying is who else is going to do these menial shitty jobs that we can pay at the bare bones or minimum on for the super hard work to
Yeah.
people, because no one else wants to do it because it sucks, it's hard work, and no one will do it for that low of pay.
Right.
It's like you're not too far off of slavery when you're saying we can't survive if someone's not out there picking my crops.
Yeah.
Well, number one, I don't know. I'm not, I know a little bit about agriculture and farming. You may know more, Rob, but most crops and farming are harvested by multi-million dollar machines. There is not many people out there bending over picking cotton, beans, wheat, anything like. They're not there with a scythe just cutting down, wheat fields. There are multi-million dollar John Deere machines that are driverless, being controlled by GPS, that are going through and cleaning house. They're doing that as efficiently and quickly as possible. So
Right.
that's another thing. And I hear all this, and like, who's having crops picked by hand? Like,
Yeah.
you know, not a mass producer of anything, maybe a small farm, maybe a small farm that sells to a local market, or maybe a local family owned grocery store. Uh, but they're not a major producer, or a grower of stuff for grocery stores across the country. That's being done by machinery.
Yeah. Yeah. Those smaller farms are done by the family themselves. Those are
Right.
usually family run farms that are doing that themselves. So they're
As
not hiring people.
Yeah, as you know, Rob, I hunt a little bit, and the property where I hunt at, 3/4 of it is leased out to a local farmer, and he has a number of farms around there that he leases or owns, and all the word most of the time where he grows where we hunt at is corn for ethanol. It's not even feed corn. It's not even for cattle. It's not even that quality. It isn't bad looking corn. I've seen it, but it's corn just for ethanol, for the ethanol plant. So all he does is lease farm acreage after acreage, and just harvests it with big, huge combines just to make fuel.
Right.
Right. It doesn't take much. And when he does cabbage, does other stuff, when he does soybeans, same thing. It's all machines. He's got a good amount of farm. Most of his stuff he sells is in a huge farmer's market. So most of the actual edible produce, peas, lettuce, cabbage, maybe some corn, all that kind of stuff, melons and stuff like that. He sells in a market. He's not even shipping it across the country or to grocery stores. So,
Right. Well, I think I've told you this story before. I mean, I used to work for a home builder years ago, and I literally watched a gentleman that they were construction crew was paying under the table because he was here illegally. He fell off the roof, and because he was being paid under the table, he was not able to submit for workman's comp. I watched them pick him up, put him in the truck, and drive him home, and he was off for several days with no pay
right.
because he didn't have workman's comp. He had no insurance because he couldn't go to that. So there's a huge negative impact uh, to trying to sustain that low pay workforce, and
Right.
it's almost evil to the point.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
So on the tariffs, my thing was just the market. President Trump said there will be some pain. The markets have sucked the last few days, especially the tech sector. It's been pretty brutal. Even though we had good inflation numbers yesterday and that kind of stuff, right? You're going to have pain no matter what you do. You look at the history of our country in every major battle, every start of every war, we have always had our asses kicked at the first few battles until we get ourselves set right, and then we win. But you're going to have a little pain up front, and the markets have shown that the last few days. Of course, the media, mostly the left-leaning media, are jumping all over it, just like we saw the talking points of the last 2 weeks where I thought you were going to bring down grocery prices and egg prices. It's like, I don't know. He seems to be working pretty fast and doing a lot of other stuff. I don't think you can, get to it all, but I think we'll see that around. But yeah, the markets have not been wonderful the last few days. But again, depending
I
on
don't want
what's
to hear a single politician, and I know they're all spewing the same thing. Well, he said he was going to do this day one. He said, you didn't say a word for 4 years while the demented idiot let inflation run rampant, while prices were going through the roof, and you sat there quiet and acted like everything was okay. And you acted like the demented idiot was fully capable of functioning when he wasn't. So if you didn't say shit for 4 years, shut up now.
well, the best part is that now they're all coming out and being like, "What? We had no idea." Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, now they're all acting surprised. It's like, yeah. But he also said at the start of or during his campaign in 2019 and 20 that he was going to be a unifier of the country.
Yeah.
That the other guy was divisive and this and that, whatever. And he never once did that, right? From standing in front of the red lights with the Marines behind him to calling Trump supporters this name or that name and whatever else. No one ever called him on that. He never once did anything to unify the country, unless you want to count unifying the country to all agree that he was mentally incapable. Even the people on the left, that's what the only way he unified was everyone saying that he should never been president, and pretty much everyone wondering who actually led this country,
Right.
right? And now that we see the AutoPen info come out, the infamous AutoPen that I know Obama had, I don't know who else has ever used it. If you saw that the other day, they went
Yeah.
back. This investigative journalist or whatever went back, and they found every doc they could that President Biden signed. And they do handwriting signature experts, and short of like a couple docs and the letter he wrote when he dropped out of the race, those were the only ones. I mean, literally, I think less than 10 documents, if that, were the only ones that they said were signed by him, that were not signed by because the AutoPen signs each one the same way. It's like a person signing. You can tell a real signature or not. And they've graded all of them. So everyone's really wondering who is running the AutoPen, because that
Yeah.
apparently is who is running the country.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, like you said, 8,000 um, pardons. I mean, you can't tell me he signed every one of those. He
right.
probably I would bet he probably didn't know probably 7,999 of them.
Well,
The only one that he knew that he was pardoning was his son and maybe
well,
his brother.
it came out like the other day when Speaker Johnson kept it to himself until recently, a month or so ago. But he had asked President Biden about why did you sign this one law, and he goes, "What are you talking? No, I didn't." And he goes, "Yes, you did." And he said he knew right then. He goes, "That's when President Biden had no idea what he's talking." He's like, "I never signed that," and his signature was
Right.
on it. And then you take that and match it up with the auto pen and what they've discovered, and just his mental capabilities or lack thereof. It kind of it's there's smoke everywhere. There's definitely a fire that that this guy, whoever was running that, was what they were, and he was just doing what the teleprompter told him. I mean, he was the ultimate Ron Burgundy. He just read off whatever he was told, which we literally saw when he would read off like the guidance and not, you know, make sure clap now, right? Just would read off the instructions, not what he's supposed to say. But
Well, that's a true constitutional crisis, right? I mean, you hear Democrats use that phrase all the time, but that's
oh,
truly a constitutional crisis. If he did not know what was being signed, and somebody was just simply shoving this through the wood chipper to get it done, could any of it be invalidated? Right? I
right.
mean, that's the real question, and that's what I don't know if Republicans are going to push that, if they're even going to open that Pandora's box, but
I heard
maybe they'll put that in their hip pocket.
I saw a report yesterday. I haven't had a chance to validate it. I don't know if it's legit. Maybe you do, or maybe someone can pipe in the chat. But that a judge has ruled, uh, either has ruled or says there's a potential that around 80% of the pardons, or 80 something of the pardons that he gave in his last month or couple months are invalid because they are literally the ones where he was pardoning for crimes that had not been committed, which we all knew because that's what the Constitution is
Right.
written. It's for that. And it was just a matter of time. But I saw something quick yesterday that a judge has ruled that they are not valid or legit. That includes Fauci, Milley, Hunter, all those
Right.
different ones because they're not for a convicted crime. They're for potential. I'm sure if that's the case, um, that it's going to work its way up to the Supreme Court. And I mean, then that's their job, is to interpret the Constitution as it's written as best they can. So
Right.
it'd be interesting to see if that's actually. I don't know if you had heard that at all. I just saw it.
No, I'd seen a little bit on that. When he signed them, that was kind of the word on the street, was that this is unprecedented. This has never been done before. These just kind of open ended, you know, blanket pardons. It's not something that's even written in the Constitution anywhere. So
Right.
I
The
just don't know if Republicans are going to have the intestinal fortitude to start pulling on that string.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends, and I guess we'll see. They seem to have been done. They've done well so far, but um, yeah. So hey, the other day, last weekend, I was down south, and let me tell you, I was near, and I went on to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I can report back that it is truly Fort Benning, Georgia, again. Um, they did not bring back the old sign and put it at the front gate as you come into Fort Benning. It literally says Fort Benning, named in honor of Corporal, I don't remember his first name, Corporal Fred G. Benning, or whatever it was. It's the new sign. Like, they did not waste any time. So when you hear Benning is back, it's like Bragg is back. It surely is. The base renaming, most were surprised because Colonel Moore was, and his wife are pretty well respected and renowned. I mean, Bragg was made sense. They named it Liberty, which wasn't named after anybody. But Colonel Moore is obviously from the famous battles of LZ X-ray. We were soldiers once and young. Definitely is a hero, and it would be substantiated. And but it looks like they're not stopping with Bragg. That they have changed it back. I wonder, do you think they're going to change in the other ones? Or they'll leave them?
I don't know. I mean, I've had this conversation with a lot of people about the first time they renamed them, and I was having a discussion with a chaplain one time I ran into, a full bird colonel, and I told him, because I've been on several of those installations that were renamed. Fort Gordon, Fort Benning, Fort Bragg. Spent a considerable amount of time on all of those, and I can say with you know 99% of the people that serve on those installations don't know, nor do they care who those installations are named after. The only time it would even come up is if you were going to a promotion board or an Audie Murphy board. And that was one of the questions they asked. Other than that, nobody cares. You
You're
know,
right.
there
Yeah. I
and
served as you did, every race, creed, color, whatever. Because I tell people we know, right? The military is the most diverse organization in the United States, if not the world. But our military for surely is the most diverse. Yeah, no matter if you were Hood, Bragg, Carson, this, that. I mean, Carson probably like, oh, maybe Kit Carson. I don't know, and different Walter Reed. Okay, probably a dude named Walter Reed. But when it was Fort this or Camp that or whatever, yeah, no one knew, and surely nobody of any minority sit there and said, "Man, I love the Army, but I'm sure I wish they didn't send me to Bragg because it's named after a Confederate general."
right,
No, nobody cared. Like I said, until they brought it up, and again, only if you went through a board, uh, then you would only know, and then it'd probably stick. 'Cause you're like, "Did you realize it was named after that?"
right.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
It
and
was.
it's not just the installation that has to change, right? I mean, you see signs several hundred miles outside of most of these installations that say
Oh,
X amount of miles to that. So now it's on the state. So now it's even more into the taxpayers' pockets to rename these things. So,
oh, it's
oh
signage, it's letterhead,
yeah,
it's business cards, it's everything around anything and everything around the base has to be changed. So hopefully Bragg and Benning and hopefully the others kind of still had those in a warehouse somewhere and stored them so they could just have them and say, hey, dust that dust that Bragg sign off and bring it back, and we'll put it back at the front gate and do that kind of thing. It looks like we have a
we have a Toby.
special edition coming on. The one, the only, the man of hair, Toby Nunn. What's up, buddy? Look at that. Oh,
Brochachos.
man. Wow, you are loud. Holy cow. Let me turn
Oh,
my.
Lo siento.
Yeah,
I will tone it down.
that's a sharp looking Marvita shirt. Man, I can't wait till I see one of those one day.
You look
Um,
like you got a little
In
bit of
person.
sun.
yeah, you got a little.
Uh, I do have a pretty good burn on my face and some of my arms. Although
Yeah.
it's still the soft white underbelly though.
Yeah. They got that farmer's tan going on.
It's 100%. If the farm was a fish, yeah, you got it. Rancho del Pescador.
Yeah, there we go. Look at this gun show. Man, we are all
Mm,
in here.
We're
Look at
getting
that.
the full Monty.
Yeah.
not
Uh,
quite, not quite.
quite. Yeah. I was like, that takes this show. We got to make some updates on our social outlets if we start doing that. Um, hey, you probably heard Toby. We were just talking about the naming the base. I was talking about how I was down at Benning this last weekend, and the sign's back up, and it actually says it's named in honor of Corporal Benning, and that kind of stuff. And just they've changed Bragg, they've changed that. Any thoughts on as you see this happen? I'm not sure. We thought that they would actually start changing the names of the ones named after real people. On the
So, I mean, I think it's brilliant. The manner at which they're doing it. Unfortunately, I kind of, as I was backstage there, some of it was muted, but we're talking about a lot of money, and I know and it's a lot of money to prove a point, but I think it's for a good cause. I think it's to demonstrate that, you know, we we don't need to be bullied by people that don't appreciate the true history of America. And the true history of America is this country was founded by bold and brave men fighting for what they believe. And no feelings, no words, no weird studies program at some, liberal arts college is going to change the fact that men made a decision to branch out on their own, seek governance of their own, and you know throughout the time of this country, some of these great men did things that accomplished that end goal of us being free and us having what we have, and they deserve to have their name on the front of a sign, regardless of the political climate currently versus at that time. So whether or not that guy owns something that he wasn't supposed to own now that was legal at the time or socially accepted at the time, or whether or not that guy wore a different color uniform or whatever it might be, or whatever people might think it was, I guarantee no one can actually tell you who Fort Hood is named after. Like, go
Now or
ahead,
Did,
tell
did it
me.
ever
Tell,
did it ever come
now
up on
or
the
when
t-
it,
tell
auditorium
me.
board?
Tell me who Fort Hood's named after. I mean, I can tell you the name Cavazos is marred with controversy. In fact, right now, the president, the national president of the Banditos outlaw motorcycle gang, shares that name. So, are we naming posts after someone that like has committed atrocities of human trafficking, the dealing of methamphetamines, murder, racketeering? I mean, like this whole thing is bullshit, and I'm glad that we have a Secretary of Defense that is doing the legwork. Bringing Bragg back, bringing Benning back. The fact that and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that someone by the name of Bragg in World War II did something amazing. It shouldn't be a surprise that someone by the name of Benning did something. Why? Because these are names rich in storied American military tradition. Because I tell you what, I bet there's a nun. I bet that there's a Stewart. Oh wait, there's a base name. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
get over it. Just
yeah.
stop being little.
Well, what's great is their Google game is strong because they're, Pete has them going out there looking, find someone that did it, and they're not just finding some guy like, hey, PFC Bragg, he got an AAM and he was a truck driver. No, they're finding dudes with DSCs and silver stars and things like that have done phenomenal things. And it was great that to me, it's great they've been named the way they made. So they did this little,
Look,
but now we're
look,
naming after a corporal in World War II or a corporal in World War One that did this phenomenon that no one's ever heard of, but definitely did something phenomenal to even warrant such a recognition.
right. So to that point, though, what does it matter? Like that's the whole thing that I just struggle with. What does it matter if it's a general? What does it matter if it's a PFC? Um, like, name something what you want to name it.
Right,
We're talking about words.
right.
Like,
And in 5 years,
by changing the name,
no one's going to
by
know who.
changing the name of Fort Hood, like, and the money spent on changing the name of Fort Hood, did it affect the fact that the leadership of that base has been relieved in the past couple years because they lost control of soldiers? They had soldiers murdering each other. Has that changed that? Has it changed the fact that there was in late 1990s, early 2000, there was a crime ring run by the military police provost marshal's office there? Like, no, like, how about like we worry about not words. Let's worry about actual leadership. Let's worry about the product that's coming out of those places. The name on Fort Benning doesn't make the kids coming out of Sand Hill any better. It's
Right,
it's the leadership of the men and women on Sand Hill, teaching them and modulating and preparing them to go to a unit at whatever the name of the base is under the banner and the guidon. Like, the important thing of Fort Hood or Fort Benning or Fort Bragg isn't the name of the base. It's the nomenclature, the division, the corps, the battalion, the brigade, the regiment. Yeah, why don't you go change the devil in baggy pants name? You're like, oh wait, you can't. You know, like, because that's what matters. Like,
right.
this whole thing, it just we're just wasting so much money. Like, when we changed them the first time, I think I saw it was like $3 billion, 3 billion with a B,
Yeah.
$1 billion
You could fix a lot of
to change
mold.
names.
You could fix a lot of mold in the
Oh my
barracks.
gosh!
Get some good food in the
Like,
chow. Yeah.
like,
I do want to say
why,
real
why
quick.
don't why don't we change why don't we change the name of Walter Reed? Because like Building 8 had all the mold in it. Like,
Yeah.
it's so stupid, so
I want
stupid. How about just
to
fix the problems?
I want to say one thing, Toby. With you on, it makes me and Rob look like we're sickly, dying cancer patients. We look so white and pasty. I'm looking at you. I'm thinking, am I okay? Like, should I check my blood pressure? Because Toby,
I might have jaundice.
you could, but man, you make me look like I got to get out in the sun, Jack.
Hey,
Yeah,
on Fort Cavazos, real quick.
I can't even say
So
it, but yeah,
the young lady that died, Vanessa Guillen, a few years
Yeah,
ago. Yeah,
say her name.
her sister is running to challenge Green in Houston. So the idiot that stood up during the
Yeah,
president's speech, shaking his cane, Vanessa Guillen's sister is
yeah.
running against him, and I hope like hell she wins.
Say her name.
Vanessa Guillen.
Say her name.
Yes,
That's right.
Vanessa Guillen. So I hope
That's
she
right.
wins because that will help spread that name even more. So so that's what I wanted to say.
yeah. So since we're talking about the Pentagon and DoD and our friend Pete Hegseth, I do find it ironic. Like, so before Pete was named Secretary of Defense, it's kind of a running joke for those around him and know that he is he's good looking hair. He's kind of all he, if you didn't know he's in the Army, you would think he was a Navy SEAL because he kind of has the hair for it. That I don't know if you know this or not, Toby. He just ordered a full review of all military grooming and fitness standards. So he has directed his military leadership in the Pentagon to review body composition, physical fitness, and specifically beards as an area of focus in the U.S. military, which Pete has never had a beard that I've ever seen, but I mean, does have good hair. But I just thought it was kind of ironic that that's what they're going after. I don't know if Pete is pro beard or anti beard. I would think he's probably like, hey, calm down a little bit on the beard thing. But that is what's going on now. He has done let's look at this because I guess since 2015 they have gotten a pretty lackadaisical on the beard thing. I don't know if that's a GWAT holdover and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, so he's going after military standards now. That's part of the Mustang in him, I guess.
Well, I mean, I love that. Since let's just jump on that real quick. The I don't really care about the beard thing. To be quite honest, I think the beard's pretty stupid. Um, mainly because the beard has a purpose in you know in one theater, and that's it. I'm pretty confident that the guys operating in South America and other places of the world, like the indigenous folk around them that they're dealing with aren't rocking beards, so they don't need to be rocking beards either.
They don't have the
Uh,
Castro look.
yeah, but like but let's talk about 600-9 in regards to the Army. Uh, in 600-9, this Army Regulation 600-9, uh, there is a statement about a commander uh, being authorized to refer someone and counsel them under Army Regulation 600-9 for the appearance, not just the factual or empirical outcome of like a height weight test, but for the appearance of being unfit and being unhealthy. And, we got so woke that we're like, oh, that line means that a commander can legally fat shame. No, like uh, a leader should be able to assess the fitness of its unit, male or female, of its unit. And, like, get over it. Everyone thinks that you go to a fight to make friends. You don't go to a fight to make friends. You go to make fertilizer, and we need to get back to war fighting. And that's a quote by William T. James, also known as Buck James, and Colonel retired, one of the greatest Americans ever. And we need to get back to war fighting. We need to get back to lethality. We need to get back to survivability, and stop trying to appease people, with words. And again, like, we're talking about words. People
Well,
are
the
all
mistake
offended
they
about
made,
words.
the mistake people have made, and I have this conversation with my wife all the time. The military is not all inclusive. It's not meant to be all inclusive. It never will be all inclusive. It shouldn't be all inclusive. It's not there to accept you for whatever. It's there with a mission and a purpose, and it needs to get back to that mission and purpose.
I mean, you go back to all of us as NCOs, right? You go back to, I'm not here to be liked. We're not there. We weren't there for popularity contests. In fact, I think many NCOs considered it a badge of honor if their subordinates were pissed at them all the time and didn't like them, because that means they were being hard on and making them do their job. I mean, that holds down to the individual level, and yes, at the collective of the military level or unit level, right? You're not there to win popularity contest. You're there to get a mission done.
No, like, but I mean, this is a societal norm, right? Because the coolest thing right now is to be your kid's best friend. And we're all parents here, and no one has as many kids as Rob, but you know, Rob is an amazing leader of his home, an amazing leader of his family, and that's because, like, he's not best friends with all his kids. Like, our job is to raise and rear and prepare them for the hard realities of survival in this world. And as military leaders, we need to prepare our subordinates, for the harsh reality of the battlefield and survival of that field, of that world. And the enemy doesn't care. He doesn't care, or she doesn't care if, we didn't get the right amount of hugs or the right high five, or you said a word that, was cringe, like that drone that's going to drop that ordinance on you. It doesn't have any feelings at all. AI is running that. It doesn't even know. It doesn't care. So, like, don't get butthurt. Again, let's get back to sticks and stones and stop worrying about words.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want to break sensitive topic, but we are just getting a news alert in now, and this has been a kind of a hot thing the last. Forgive the pun. You're going to know in a second. In our country, but there's an American Airlines flight at the Denver airport at the gate that is on fire. The people had to evacuate out onto the wing. Like, it's sitting at the jetway. It has not backed out yet. It's sitting at the jetway. I don't know, maybe it was starting to back out, but apparently it has caught fire. The passengers were all forced to go out onto the wing to get out of the plane. So this is happening. It came out about 10 minutes ago. So
considering aircraft carry their fuel in the wings, that's probably not the best place to be.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Where's Taco when we need him? We need tacos.
You beat me to it. I was like, they went on the wings?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, why don't you go with the back ramp and slide down that thing? Whee! Like,
that's like saying, like, we're getting bombed. I'm gonna go hide in the AHA. I'm gonna go hide.
No, like, I heard the bunker that has all the ammo is the best place to be. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, just got that.
I'm sure. In 5 minutes we'll get a document, a small documentary quickly produced about how Trump's decision to do something, put tariffs on jet fuel, caused this fire.
Probably. Or Elon Musk.
Yeah, like,
it had to be.
I mean, it's Elon's fault for pushing back on making EV planes. This is Elon's fault.
Yeah. So, Toby, you kind of came on. We're glad you came on a little bit late, but we didn't know. I just want to give you a chance. Is there anything hot in the news that you know of down there in a very southern studio that you would just like to hit on? Anything that's on the news down there that you think is that's
absolutely, absolutely. No, I'm going to leave that one alone. That's too soon. But no, like, let's talk tariffs. Um, because like, uh, I'm involved in business, an American business that owns businesses in Mexico. Um, and, we try to move product from the United States into Mexico. We try to move product from Mexico into the United States. I'm engaged in tourism. But I've done a lot of importing and exporting of goods and services in the past couple years. And, like the the US news media, and a couple of like people that want to be stars on US news media from Canada keep talking a bunch of trash about, and when I say trash, I mean the garbage that's coming out of their mouths, the uneducated, inexperienced, naive, ignorant words that are coming out of their mouth about tariffs is mind blowing. So just so you know, like anything I import from the United States into Mexico is subject to two separate forms of taxation. The first one, if it's any form of electronic or luxury item, and a rod could be considered a luxury item, a reel could be considered a luxury item, an iPhone could be considered a luxury item. Um, a watch, anything of value that is deemed of luxury by the agent at the time. This is all subjective and it's all like at the discretion of the agent. Is assessed an immediate 28% tax. All right.
by by the country of Mexico.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's an additional 16% on top of that for it entering into the economy of Mexico. All right, so let's do a little bit of math. All right, so like that puts us at 44%,
Yep.
right? 44% on anything, right? So if we then assess 25% in return, that leaves us with a delta of
I think
18%, right?
there
So
you go.
like
That's what you got robbed for. He wasn't quick enough.
the like people are like, "Oh, you're crushing their economy." No, Canada's been levying taxes in the billions onto the United States for years and years and years. And this is that whole conversation before Trump even was sworn in as president that happened in Mar-a-Lago, where like Trump said, "Hey, we're gonna tighten this tariff thing up, and we're gonna make it a little closer to equal for the two of us." And like Justin Trudeau, the son of Fidel, says, "Oh, you can't do that. That's going to crush our economy. And how dare you do this to the Canadian people? Canadian people did nothing to you." And it's like, whoa, actually, didn't you just hear what I just said? Y'all have been doing this to us for years, and we've been paying.
Right.
Like, we've been propping you up. We've been propping you up. And now, like, and this is like the sad thing, and I everyone knows I'm a proud Canadian, and I love Canada. I'm proud Canadian. However, I am prouder of the country that I fought for. Canada should be the richest country in the world. It's got the second largest oil reserves on the planet. It's the breadbasket of the world. The Canadian prairies can produce more wheat and grain than any other country on the planet. That includes Russia, right? It's got one of the largest coal deposits and the ability to move it. It's got some of the greatest infrastructure in terms of railway, shipping, right? It's got four coasts, right? Four coasts that it can move resources off of. It's one of the it's probably the richest natural resource piece of land on the planet. It's got the lowest population. Canada should be like Dubai times 10, right? Canada should be Dubai times 10. but it's not. And that's because of mismanagement. And that's because of ineffective management, poor tariffs, poor understanding of import exports. And I'm a knuckle dragging infantryman. I'm as about as Neanderthal as it gets. But on paper, Canada should be Dubai times 10. It should be the Royal Canadian Emirates. It should be like not Kanaka Bar, Canada. You know, like we 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 send more silver to the United States in terms of like halfway medals and tournaments than the United States produces. We should be the richest country on the planet. So why is Canada getting like bent out of shape about these tariffs? Purely because there's some Canadian politicians trying to grab headlines on American media. And the second like a Canadian actually like sits down and like starts thinking about like, oh, what if we just like did the right thing with our resources? What if we just did the right thing with our stuff and start managing it well? Why is it that all these great Canadians are successful in American business? I don't know, like Elon Musk. Which country is he from?
South
Let, yeah, but which citizenship does he hold?
Did he come through Canada?
You got it right. The like look at Shark Tank. Damn it, half a
Yeah.
Shark Tank. Why are all the guys on Shark Tank Canadian? Like what the yacht, this ridiculous $700 million yacht that's sitting out in the bay right here that I look at out my window. Where's that guy? That's right, West Coast Canada. Like, why is it that all these guys are from Canada, yet Canada can't get its shit together? That's leadership and that's mismanagement. And you know, like they're over there like Trump's gonna ruin our country. No, like Trump's new, dude. Trump's new. Y'all are like been screwing Canada over, well, for a minute. Since Murdoch Mysteries came on CBC. Let's do that.
CBC is a national network in Canada, for those that don't know. But yes,
Oh,
Canadian.
who owns the Canadian Broadcast Company, the number one news outlet in the country of Canada?
The state,
That's right. Well, shall we say the Crown?
the crown.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so we were talking tariffs earlier, but I'm glad you brought this in because you're in the middle of it between the country you live in now and the country you're from, and the one that's stuck in between. So I know you and I have talked about this on a personal basis. Even for you to ship stuff to the U.S., right? It faces some of that. There's some.
Yeah, it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's not worth you to ship things to the U.S. for people and that kind of stuff. It's better for them to buy the U.S. and that kind of thing. But
I was telling
so
Troy earlier.
Mhm.
That, I'm sorry, Troy. I was telling you earlier that Republicans right now need to do a better job with their messaging, and they need to throw up. I don't care if it's another Doge.gov website that says this is the tariffs that we're being charged on our goods, so
Right.
that the American people can see it for themselves that what we're getting charged. Because when you
oh,
just throw it out there and you just say tariffs, people either think, oh well, I'm going to get taxed, or they just don't care.
Yeah.
So I
like,
think they need to be
dude,
better with the messaging.
absolutely, Rob. There are countries, major trade partners, that are charging the United States triple digit percentages.
We were
Triple
talking.
digits.
We were talking about it a second ago, Toby. I learned yesterday that Japan charges us 100% tariff on all rice, any rice we want to sell into Japan. 100%
Yeah.
to keep our rice out of the great states of Arkansas, Texas, and others from being sold into that country. 100% tariff. So the April 1st matching of tariffs is not a Trump bullying the world. It's Trump saying, let's get all on the same plane. Let's get on the same, let's make it all even, right? Which you think the Dems would like, because
So
the Dems are all about fairness and equity, right? It's all about equity.
yeah, let's
Be the same. I mean, they should be all for this.
let's talk about rice. Let's talk about rice for just a second, right? You know, the great southern states, you know, a lot of those Gulf states that produce this enormous amount of rice that goes all over the world. You know, some of it ends up in, you know, beautiful and delicious jambalaya. Some of it ends up in like gumbo and in all the right places. Some of it ends up in Popeyes with their red beans and rice. God bless them. You know, like that is amazing. It's one of the greatest inventions, the most delicious inventions. But Japan, right? Japan's charging triple digit tariff on American rice. Yet Japan cannot produce enough rice to support its own self, right? Uh, I remember when I lived in Korea, and shout out to the land of the morning calm. Like South Korea could only produce about 15% of its rice needs for its nation, and was reliant on 85% importation of rice. So if you were eating rice in Korea, you were probably eating American rice. Yet, they're taxing us this amount for something that they absolutely need for their survival. And that's just printing money. That's just taking advantage, and that's just printing money. And now it's like, and who also helps like protect Japan?
In Korea.
To
Yeah.
just
Right. Yeah, yeah. So, but I think Rob's idea is good. Having a website similar to that. Rob, you should come. You should post to Elon on X, because he's apparently, that's all he watches that a lot, and tell him that, because that would be a phenomenal idea to let people to know how unbalanced and unfair this is. Because all they hear right now, if you listen to the left, they call it a tax. It's not a tax. You may call it a consumption tax, because you're only going to pay a tariff or pay that extra money if you want to use or eat or whatever the item that's being imported. You don't have to. So it's not a real tax, but the left knows that's a buzzword to get people's attention and get their emotions worked up by saying he's taxing you everything. Anything you buy he's putting this extra tax on it. No, you don't have to buy it. You don't want to buy an imported car? Buy a domestic car that's made here, that's not, or even just a car that's made here, regardless of who makes it, not one that's made in Canada or Mexico. That's your choice. It's called free will. It's called the capitalist consumer system, right? But I think that website would be a phenomenal eye opener of just the tariff, and it could have like a table of just like pick a country and a drop down and show the tariffs. That would be. We should design that. That's a good idea. I like that.
Well, I mean,
Speaking of X, real quick, I read earlier the former CEO of Twitter got his X account suspended for 12 hours. I thought that
Jack
was hilarious.
Dorsey.
I thought that was hilarious for violating the rules. And as someone who's had their account suspended multiple times, I think I think it's hilarious. By the way,
You get suspended a lot, Rob, but a lot of that's self-induced.
It is. So,
But
Yeah. My ex account got canceled, and I had to start afresh like 2 years ago.
I remember that.
And just
That
like out of nowhere, just like
that was pre-Elon, I think. Wasn't it? That was.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was right beforehand. Yeah.
So
No,
oh, go ahead. I was on a shift, but go ahead.
no, like there's all this like hype. There's all this like we have to like have aggression. We have to have people given a reason to fight, to resist. It's so counterproductive. The calling of for people to protest Tesla, right? So I'm going to use Tesla as an example. Is people are so like misinformed about what Doge actually is. They're so misinformed about what's actually happening that they're going and they're protesting innocent businesses now, right? So they're like, well, Elon owns Tesla or majority shares, or owns, controlling shares or whatever of Tesla. Therefore, we're going to go speak our disdain on him by protesting his businesses and lighting them on fire and harassing their employees. Well, those employees have nothing to do with what is going on in Doge.
Right.
Like,
they have nothing to do with
in Austin, Texas, we have like, the Gigafactory right there on Toll Road 130 near the Austin airport. You can't miss it. They're pumping out vehicles there, and they're, putting up jobs. That Gigafactory brought in something like 11,000 direct jobs. And please fact check me. That number might be too
That
high.
that contract was signed. He had to hire 50% from local. He was not allowed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
import.
He wasn't allowed to bring his California
Yes,
people.
yes.
He had to hire local, and the that's just the direct jobs. Then there's like the adjacent jobs, the subcontracting, and then
Vendors.
there's all the service support that goes with it.
Yeah.
So in the end, that's almost 100,000 people employed in the surrounding area of a town that's got like what 1.3, 1.4 million. You know, like so like that's a substantial increase in jobs. That's a substantial increase in financing to the increase of the betterment of, you know, the quality of life, you know, the better infrastructure, all those things. Like that is not, and that's, you're not protesting a guy. You're protesting everything that falls with that. And that's what's just so wild and crazy that people are like, they hate someone so much. It's the whole like, I'm on this airplane and I don't like the pilot, so like I'm gonna pray that the pilot has a heart attack, you know, and like has misfortune. But you're on the plane, the pilot's flying.
Right.
Like it just makes no sense. It's just so frustrating, and I like the vitriol. Like I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed. My social media is not by any stretch of a means an echo chamber. I got Canadians on there. I got Koreans on there. I got Mexicans on there. I got Americans on there. I got Democrats. I got Republicans. I got Greenpeace. I got I have the broadest spectrum that I enjoy, you know, celebrating the successes of, celebrating the lives of. Like it's so cool to have that. However, I don't think I've ever seen the vitriol and the hate and the call to violence that I have seen since Trump was sworn in on the second time. And just
Yeah.
the blind hatred, the blind hatred.
But you know what,
You know,
Toby? But
like,
you know what? We saw this coming when the assassination attempt, the first, happened.
yeah,
I remember us talking about it, and I was surprised. You know, you started hearing stories of people saying, "Oh, that guy shouldn't have missed," and blah blah blah. And then it started getting closer and closer, and now then it started becoming people I'm close to, families and friends and people I'm acquainted with that were saying things like that, and I was like, it was
yeah,
almost like I thought that was someone else's problem. Like that's striking close to
no,
home. Really,
real
so
close.
last June, July of last year, it was starting to show its ugly head. That this vitriol was bubbling up because of just being fed. Right, the flames are being fanned. We saw it then. We just didn't know what it was going to turn into for sure.
Well, you
No,
saw it with
like,
the assassination of that medical company CEO as well. I mean, you saw just
Yeah,
the everybody
yeah,
going, support Luigi. I mean, a slew of people just coming out going supporting murder,
yeah.
plain and simple.
I mean, that guy, you know, we might disagree with his business practices, but like to execute a man in cold blood in the streets, no, it's really unfortunate that, you know, like Troy, I share the same thing. I have people very close in this in my life that are like calling for the death or like, yeah, calling for the death, saying executing, assassinate. And and I gotta be honest with you, I laughed when Biden slipped on the stairs. Like f- I laughed when Biden fell off his bicycle. I did. I
we laugh at our kids
wholeheartedly laughed.
when they fall and trip over something in the house. We go, you
Right.
know, then you go, "Are you
Like
okay?" And they're okay, and you're like,
yeah,
"Ah,
yeah. No, like there's something in human nature to take pleasure in the physical fumble of another human. Like the clumsiness. Like there's something about it. We laugh. That's why Chris Farley made so many Americans' lives happier, right? Because slapstick humor, the Three Stooges started it. You know, like look where it's gone in terms of television and on screen. You know, like it is awesome. But laughing at someone slipping on some stairs or falling off a bike, doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person of character. It makes you human. Calling for the assassination and wishing the death on another human being, it makes you a murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, and so that
Like,
you're right. That vitriol is terrible. But what I think I have found, and you can agree with me or not, guys, but the people that are like everything, it's an 80-20 rule, right? It's just like the media, they make things sound like they're going to hell in the handbasket. They have over the last number of years, like it's terrible, this and that. But we talked to everybody in the street, they're like, it ain't that bad, right? The media makes you think everyone is racist, everyone is this, everyone hates everyone, looks different. But then you're out there in everyday street and people are holding doors open for each other and helping each other. The media made you think that Hillary was going to win, but then we found out that wasn't the case. The media made you think that Biden was totally okay and competent, but then after the fact, everyone was like, no, there's no way. And now everyone continues to pour out saying, yeah, we knew it the whole time. So, the few people, I say all that to think that there's a number of people you have in your feed, we all probably do, that are the ones always throwing up something all the time. The people that are happy and fine with everything look at it, shake their head, think first world problem, and they get on with what's important in life, providing for their family, working. We all know no one has changed anyone else's mind about politics on social media ever, right? We all get dragged into it sometimes. Sometimes you can only hear it so many times, and you just want to tell someone to Sierra Tango Foxtrot uniform. But the reality is no one's going to change your mind, and we just shake our head and go, I got more important shit to deal with, right? I got a company to run, or work to go do, or a sick family member. So you hear that, but the reality is most people aren't thinking that way, and they're vitriol is from a minority. The majority is very happy, and I
yeah,
think you see.
no, like the
Well,
I
what you
just
do
spent.
see, what you do see is that you talked about the media and how the media pushes this. That we've said for years how the media wants to be first, doesn't want to be right, right? And you've seen
Yep.
that a lot. And what you see creeping into the social media aspect of it is people publishing things that even if you point them in the right direction and prove that what they posted is wrong, they don't care because it's a negative against the person that they're targeting, right? And that's an effect I see in the social media realms that I believe started with that media pushing. Oh, we'll push a retraction later down on the very bottom of the page in small print because we got it out first and it did damage to who we wanted it to. So
Rob, like it really is. You know, if it leads, it bleeds. It doesn't have to be correct. It just needs to be first. Like you said. The sad part is like I just did a quick little tour through one of the western states that starts with a C, and it's amazing. Like there's this really different take than what you see in the media. Now, like there, obviously, the celebrity uh, is film, right? The celebrity is television. The celebrity is you know entertainment. It's not necessarily the celebrity of politics. It's not necessarily the celebrity of sport. Um, there is some of that, but when you get down to it, like they just endured a small, and like I don't mean to diminish that experience, but they dealt with a small natural disaster, uh, and like now they realize like, oh, like, so what does this mean? Oh, it means policy. It means this. Oh, like we didn't have water or the means to take water from the big thing right next to where that fire was burning and get it onto the fire. um, like why is that? What created this situation? And they realized like, you know it was self-created. And now it's just really interesting hearing the different people talk and stuff. And like, oh, like what one story that could be told is, that it's this person's fault. But in the end, the story that is told is like, we did this to ourselves and we allowed it. Like you can't complain about fuel prices in California because they voted for the fuel price,
Right.
literally. And and it's like, and so like seeing that, and then in comparison to like, of course, from Texas, there's the opinion that California isn't as great. They've made some bad decisions, and please keep those bad decisions there. But it's really media fueling so much of this that it's no wonder that people are leaving and going and seeking their information elsewhere. I had the absolute pleasure a couple Saturdays ago to go fishing and to sit down and have just a wonderful conversation with a great American, accomplished media personality, wonderful lady by the name of Sage Steele, and I I was just so impressed, and then you realize like people have to leave mainstream media because they can't actually, there's the agenda. They have to go out on their own if they want to truly be a journalist. They truly want to report. If they're truly curious and want to investigate the human condition, they have to go out and do it. And that's why Sean Ryan, Joe Rogan, like these people, have grown to the heights that they've grown is because like they're just keeping it real. They're keeping it honest and talking to the actual person, even if it's controversial.
Right.
And that's what we need to do. And like now if someone tells me on the news, I've never been a conspiracy guy. But now if you tell me on the news I need to like like this person's like a terrible, like I'm gonna be like, nah, let me look into this person. Like you know
You're great.
and
You went from a documentary film star and published author, and look, you got an online show, and so you can get the vote out. I mean, you've been there, and you could have taken that at a lot of different angles, and you've been involved with the movie and media industry. You could have your career paths, maybe people may not know, could have taken much different angles. You could have been swallowed up into that beast and done well.
oh yeah, for sure. But like I believe it. I believe in integrity,
Right.
and like it. And man, I love knowledge. Like I don't have many brain cells, right? I'm an infantry guy. I don't have a ton of brain
I may
space,
may have
so like
helped.
I don't want to fill it with a bunch of
I may have
like
helped.
falseness. I want to have actual facts.
I may have helped you kill a couple of those. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We may have taken a few out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's no, I mean that's a good way to capture that, and that there's stuff put out there. This is the problem with Americans today, probably other countries too, but that nobody wants to take the time to investigate and do their own. This is why blogs, when we were blogging way back in the mid 2000s, why they were so popular. People knew then
Yeah.
not to believe what was fed to them by whatever embedded journalist there was on the battlefield, and they were coming to blogs that both you and I wrote that were hugely popular because they wanted the ground truth, not what was being an agenda from a 3-letter network. They wanted to hear from the people on the ground, and that's, to me, that's where it all started. That's where people were able to say, I have another way to find this info out. There's another medium, which is again kind of what we're doing now with this Lima Charlie show, right? After the fact, now looking back in hindsight, we're going back and re-grabbing these stories and letting people hear this is what it was real. This is what life was like in combat, or life was like in this country, or whatever it may be. So we can kind of capture it for archival purposes, and say it wasn't all that. Yeah, the Afghanistan fell, and that sucked, and all that stuff. I hope one day we can get some people that were there in those sad last few weeks, so we can get a better feedback on what it was really like besides what we just saw. Even though what we saw, there was nothing nice about any of it. It was all terrible. I'm sure the first front hand stories are even worse, than what we saw. But no, and people just got to take time. They need more than the 5-second soundbite, because that's where they get fed bullshit. But what I think we see is that the American people have, honestly, because of Biden and the false narrative that was pushed by the left and the media about him, and now that it's all coming to fruition, I think that people are like, we see it with our own eyes. We're hearing it with our own, like, how can you tell me this is not, how can you tell me it's a peaceful protest? The entire block is on fire behind you, dude. Or, why are you acting like it's a hurricane? And then another picture shows the guy on his knees in a puddle of water. And it's like, dude, like, a weather guy. It's not that bad. I think it took time for that momentum to build, and it kind of came to fruition, sadly, last year as the campaign ran. And then people finally said, you know what? The media truly is. You can only see it so many times and go, there's some validity to it. They are just feeding us what they want us to hear. I need to go out and find out the truth. And I think that's why Trump is so popular right now, because he is not doing anything he didn't say he was going to do. Right.
Well, everything in life is cyclical, right? Everything has a cycle. And one of the things you're seeing in the Republican Party is you're seeing this groundswell of younger people coming into the party, where you have your Lauren Boebers, your Byron Donalds that we talked about before. And what you're seeing in the Democrat Party right now is you're seeing the Chuck Schumers, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Bernie Sanders are cycling on their way out. And where I'm going with this is someone like Gavin Newsom just sat down with Charlie Kirk and did an interview.
Yeah,
he saw
he did.
the value in sitting down. He also sat down with Steve Bannon. So that younger in that party is seeing the value of this alternate media.
You know what I think he saw? Not to sit in the echo chamber. That's what he did with both of those interviews, right? He realized you've got to get on someone with an opposing view and not just be an echo chamber, because people don't give that any validity.
Well, the Democrats, the left always says that, the conservatives have a very strong hold in that alternate media, and they do, because the left has continued to push into the mainstream media and continued their stranglehold there, that the conservatives had no other choice but to create their own media in order to get things. Because even Fox News, we saw how they kind of went away from being conservative and tried to go more central. So I think the conservatives do have a very strong voice in that new alternate media, the Tim Pools, the Charlie Kirks,
Sage Steele.
They have that. And I think Gavin Newsom sees that, and he can reach a larger audience. I would keep an eye on Newsom for the next presidential election.
No, like, I mean, obviously, we learned through, our inner circle, how Trump was making decisions about going on podcasts, and, he came out and said it, openly later on, but he went on those podcasts because, one of his kids was listening and saying, hey, like, these guys are actually, or girls in some cases, are actually investigating and getting down to it. I was really happy to see Charlie Kirk having Gavin Newsom on, and I don't think like that's a gotcha thing. I don't think that's a like, hey, let me like dunk on you thing. I think that's a like, hey, we're two men, we're two human beings, we're two, like intellectuals. Let's actually discuss, and then we can find out that like, okay, I'm not the big bad wolf. You're not the big bad wolf. We're just human beings at the same time, shared time, different experience, and different, perspective. And we have to be able to have those openly, like, Troy, like what would Matt say in a moment like this? We need more civility. And, like, we need to be able to have these conversations and it not be controversial that Charlie Kirk's talking to Gavin Newsom. That shouldn't be controversial. That should be like, well, he's a reporter, and well, he tends to be like somewhat conservative. He's definitely conservative in his values. He doesn't hide his faith, but he's also, very, like, let me get the facts on that. Let me get that. And if, he needs to be corrected, he'll correct himself. The 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 part that's important and that shouldn't get lost is we should be able to like sit down, have that without it being all or nothing. Like one of my best friends, from several years ago, is so deeply involved in the Ukraine that he cannot see anything other than hatred. And it's so sad because he's so smart, he's so intelligent, he's such a compassionate person, and he's a believer in peace, yet now like all he can see and call for is war. And it's like, dude, we we don't like we're not going to get that there. The only time you get peace through war is through a decisive win.
Yeah, through annihilation.
Catastrophic,
Yeah,
catastrophic, decisive win. And we don't want that
right. It's
because one side's not going to get that. And we
right,
don't want, and it's not like I don't want Russians to die. I grew up singing cadences, like up jumped a commie from a coconut grove, like no, it's not that. It's, we don't want humans to die. We want peace and we want prosperity, not just for ourselves. Because again, we have so much abundance and riches that we can sit on our ass and watch a screen with somebody running their mouth about a social topic. That's it. We have enough time and money. We have so much prosperity and abundance that we can sit here, watch a screen in comfort with a full belly, talking about someone complaining about the fact that their face tattoo should be accepted. Like, this is wild
right.
that we will go to the mattresses, cut friendships, cut family members off over the opinion of something that's so counter to what our core beliefs are.
Or
Everyone says that they're like anti-war. Well, then it shouldn't matter who's president. If you're
right,
anti-war, then you should be supporting peace.
no matter what. Or an opinion
You
on
shouldn't be mad that funding got cut to a war
right,
where children and women are being indiscriminately killed, where men and young boys are being forced to fight something that they don't want to fight in and they don't believe in.
right,
Like how many videos have you seen recently of them dragging young men, boys out of their homes to go to the fight on the front lines? Those guys don't want to go. They don't believe in it that much.
right. Yeah,
And we're here on the other side of the planet going like, like we need to give them more money so that they can force more of that to happen. We need to give them more money so they can send drones to Moscow. We need to give them more money so like that evil Putin doesn't like want peace. It's so like, yeah, Putin's a scumbag. He's the absolute worst. Absolute worst. But like we could see an end to war.
yeah. Because guess what? If they go toe to toe, he's got more cannon fodder than Ukraine has all day, and he is, so you're not going to get him to come to a peace agreement or peace. He can keep shoving bodies at it, whether they're Russian, North Korean, Belarus, whatever, and he'll just keep sending waves and waves in. So the only way you're going to get it, he's going to have to get something. He's not suffering, like you said. A decisive victory is what ends war. The bottom line is, if you're fighting a nation state, right, you have to kill more people or destroy more infrastructure to the point that they finally say that's enough. Right. That's why a nuclear bomb did it. That's why, again, you start to take over every city. They finally say, okay. But, that's what it takes. You're not going to take over Russia. You're not going to wipe out Russia. Ukraine's not going to do it. Right. The only way that's going to happen is if the worst option happens in this globe, and it's going to be world impacting. So there's going to have to be some peace negotiated. Ukraine's not going to kick Russia's butt. They may kick them back some, but they're not gonna make it so painful for Putin that he's going, I'm giving up because you just handed it to me. So you got to find a compromise somewhere. I do want to go back real quick though. We've been going a minute. I do want to roll back just in case anyone's curious. Gavin Newsom term limits out next year, so he's doing this because he's done being governor of California. He's done in 26. He's term limited out. So I think him being on Charlie Kirk, him being talking to different people and being Steve Bannon. If you don't think he's not queuing up to run for something, then you are sadly mistaken and confused about how things work. But he's done being the big man in California. He's going to move on to the next thing.
What did you see? Who else just started a new podcast?
Who
Michelle
besides
Obama.
him?
Michelle Obama.
She did. Yeah,
just
she
started a
too.
podcast with her brother, which I didn't know she had a brother. But.
Yeah, I didn't know either. But I saw that. So I just want people to know that about Newsom. I mean, I think he's going to be their man in 28, and you'll know that when you start seeing every Democrat and mainstream media start having him on their shows and starting to promote him soon before the end of 26. He's starting his campaign now, if he hasn't already. He's going to get the momentum and get the money and the backing to be the challenger in 28. Guarantee you, because he's not bailing on California. He's not going to be in a job by then. So, I do want to hit on one more thing. A couple key things that are happening. Toby, before you came on, we talked about the budget shutdown has been averted. The CR is going to go, and the economy and stuff. That the House budget bill is passed and all that stuff. I did just read and find out, besides the no tax on tips, overtime, and what was the other one? Tips, overtime, and something else. What was the other one? Social Security. Trump is now talking about no federal tax for anyone making below $150,000 a year, and that he says he can make it up. And his Secretary of Treasurer says they can make it up through the tariff process. They can cover that. And so he talked about that recently about how we didn't back in the 30s or 20s we didn't have federal income tax. It was all tariffs. They're talking about pitching no federal tax on anyone below 150. I could see a lot of people like at $160,000, $170,000 a year jobs being like, can you take me down to like 148 and maybe put me on a tip program? Can I get 148 and get tips as an employee, corporate employee? So that and the privatization of the Social Security Administration. That is another thing he is looking at. So the privatization of that, meaning I guess make it more like a 401k. Which means you wouldn't be paying into Social Security, which we know we'll never see probably, Toby. But that and no tax below 150K. Any thoughts on that before we wrap up? Did you hear that? From either of you?
Go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, I think tax doesn't need to be complicated. I'm a Ted Cruz subscriber to a fair tax, flat tax plan. And who else did that? I think it was like Rand Paul, right? I think everybody, regardless of income, should pay the same percentage and get the same breaks. I don't think there should be any, it shouldn't be complicated. A 1040 easy should be the only form that any individual utilizes. It should be super simple. Whether you own a home or you don't own a home, whether you make $500,000 or you make $50,000, you should pay this. You should pay a flat rate. Everybody should pay it. We don't need protected classes. We don't need protected people. We don't need protected demographics. If you're in education, meaning like you're being educated, let's offer an exemption, to people actively enrolled in bettering themselves, because in the end, they're going to use the money, to better themselves, so that when they are earning, they pay the same equal shares everybody else. we need to get away from this group is more important or less important than that group. We need to get away from this us versus them. It just make everyone equal. Make everyone equal. Make the amount of money equal, the percentage, and just keep it simple. And then all of a sudden, like it's fair.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like you can't
you
say
never
a
lift people
billionaire
up.
isn't paying fair share. Like everyone is.
Yeah. You never lift one group up by tearing another one down. That's just not, that doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So
Yeah.
and to your point about the flat tax, I'm fully on board with that. Get rid of any loopholes. Get rid of, when it comes to corporate, do small, medium, do t-shirt sizes, right? Small, medium, large, on what your tax rate is going to be, and eliminate the all the charitable contributions. Let organizations stand on their charitable contributions. If you want the world to see
Yes.
that you're charitable, let the world see it. Don't do it because you're getting a tax break. Let the world see you doing it.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I was a big fan of Herman Cain's. His was the 999 plan, right? It was, 9% personal,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
9% sales tax, 9% corporate tax. That's it. Like you said, I believe the same thing. No,
Right.
no, and I'm a man of faith, but no exemptions for religious institutions, no exemptions for any of that. Everyone should pay it, right? And like you said, if you not 9% of 25,000 a year, 9% of 250,000 a year, you're still going to pay just that percent. I'm with you 100%, and it should not be because look at how taxes are done today, right? The government says you owe us taxes, and you go, well, how much do I owe you? We're not really sure. You got to figure it out. But if you're wrong, we're going to fine you and maybe throw you in jail. Like, no, if you say I owe you taxes, you tell me how much I owe you. The government doesn't know. They tell you got to do a bunch of math and pay someone else to figure it out. But don't be wrong, or we're coming after you. Like
well, what
real
makes
simple.
that an uphill battle is the government would have to budget. They don't want to have to
Right.
budget, but they would have to put forth an actual budget and plan accordingly within the amount of money that they're getting, because it would
Because
be
they would.
set.
Because
And
what you
they
wouldn't
don't
have
want
is
to do
these
that.
people that sit there and say this millionaire doesn't pay taxes because they have all the right loopholes. Well, you wouldn't have that, right? There would be they pay themselves a minimal salary and they take it all in capital gains. Well, guess what? Your capital gains is 9% too, or 5% or whatever it's going to be. So there's no hey, I'm going to only get paid this way and not that way, and I'm going to save my money 5% across or 9%, whatever it is across the board. Yeah, everyone, you're going to generate the revenue to pay for this country, right? If everyone is paying, what's the numbers, Rob? Do you know the what? There's a large percentage of the people today in this country that don't pay tax, right? Because of it's a vast majority of people don't pay no tax. They get all their tax money back,
Right.
right?
Well,
Because
I think one of the misnomers, especially when you're dealing tax, and Toby, correct me where I'm wrong, is when people look at somebody like an Elon Musk, or they look at somebody like Bezos or whatever, they go, "Oh, he's not paying tax." You're not separating the man from the business. You're not making that distinction. Yes, he is basically an employee of the business that he helped create and gets money from that. And he does have a certain amount of taxes he pays, but the majority of this non-tax is the business itself not paying those taxes. And people don't tend to separate the two. They look at them as one. So
I'm sure Toby is a lot on taxes.
It broke up a little bit there, Rob. But I think if I understand you, were you asking, the difference between owning a business and paying taxes on the business plus paying taxes on the gains from that business on a personal level?
I was saying that when people complain about the Bezos, the Musk, or whatever, and about the
Oh, okay.
lack of
Yeah.
taxes they're paying, they don't separate the individual from the business.
Absolutely. Like the business has its tax and the human should have its tax. One's a construct and one's a being. And, the tax for one should be it and the tax for the human should be the other. I, there's no reason why we have a 5,000 page tax code, and there's no reason why we have a tactical arm of a enforcement agency for it, and there's no reason we have that many freaking agents. And auditors and any of that. It's like, it's just, everyone should pay what they pay. If you don't, it gets garnished, and period. You just fill out your form, it gets recorded, you pay this, and that's it. There's no like, well, I need to get this break, I need that. No,
Right.
like, no loopholes. It's just simple. Everyone pays it, the businesses pay it, and then it's super simple. you know then you can find out who's pulling their weight, who's not pulling their weight. You can balance a budget. I mean, I don't understand like how you know we can't balance a budget. I, I,
Right.
I
Well,
I mean,
I think
as,
that's
as a bit as a guy running a business, like, it's super simple. Like, if I'm putting out more than I'm receiving, I'm failing, and I can't last long. And if I have reserves, then those reserves are diminished. If I don't have reserve, I failed and it's over.
right. I think that's
Like,
what the goal was of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, right? I know after that time, my taxes got a lot easier because the deductible went up so high that I couldn't. Before I was always itemizing, and you're going through everything like how much square footage in my home is my office being used for, and how much am I paying for this, and all that kind of stuff. All that went out the window when it was like, well, I have a new deduction so high, I don't. Then none of all my deductions don't even get past that, so my taxes got a lot easier, and it was pretty straightforward. It made taxes simple, like when I first started working. Like even before I joined the army, it was like I made this much. Here's my tax. I'm done. It was all it definitely is getting that way, I think, and I hope they extend those and make those permanent. But to me, I went from like needing TurboTax to just needing a calculator pretty much, short of any other crazy things like stocks and stuff, because of you wiped out all these crazy itemizations, interest rate, deduction, all these deductions. That's what it is, because when you have those, you spend all your time and stress trying to find every freaking deduction you can, right? Well,
Well,
that's what cracks me
I
up
always
too.
say two things. One, no amount of taxation will cure the disease of government spending.
correct.
You could tax until the end of the
Yeah.
time, and you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to cure that disease. The
Yeah.
second thing is nothing is more permanent than a temporary government program.
Yeah. Yep, that
So
that's true too.
we
Well,
need
we'll
to
see
fix
what
those two
happens.
things.
Everything's getting doged. I haven't checked the calculator today, but let's see how that turns out. That's one way that if this whole Doge process, which I don't get why everyone's so mad about it. It's our money. The government has no money. All that money is our money, and everyone should really care about where that money's being spent. When you give your kid $20 and they're gone for 10 seconds and come back and say, I need another $20. Like, where did you just spend that? Like, you care about where your money's going. If you give your kid $50 a week on a Friday and on Sunday they're telling you they're out of money, you're going to be go, what did you spend it on? That's the government, right? We should all care what crazy thing our money's being spent on. We should also, hopefully, it's being spent on good stuff. We should be supportive. But that's what needs to happen. We should be happy about that. And if he can make this happen and make a difference, 26 is locked in for the House and the Senate for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where were all the people crying about Sesame Street losing its funding a couple years ago? You know, like, they're all like mad because we cut funding to like Sesame Street in Baghdad.
Yeah.
But I gotta have to bounce off here, boys.
Yeah.
But
We're almost
the
the show, so we've been running for a minute.
yeah, I'm gonna have to bounce off here. I hopped in, but like, I just did this awesome trip. Uh, we got a new employee in the company, and I had to pick that employee up in California and bring that new employee here to the southern offices. And we were enjoyed an adventure. Did the entire Baja together, and I got one of my favorite friends on the planet here, retired SEAL, and we did the trip together and checked out fishing locations, surf locations, and tried not to let the new employee die. So but
Good
he
thing.
just returned, and I got to get going.
No, that's good. We got to wrap it up. We've been going an hour and 54. Hopefully people tune in and stay in and watch and listen, even though it's so long. But Toby, thank you so much for joining us. Rob, thanks. This was a phenomenal episode 354. And I want to wish you all great. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in here. Follow us on our socials. Thank you to our sponsors. It's been scrolling along the bottom. And man, I hope you guys have a good night.